Hi, my name is Andre, and I'm an aspiring storyboard artist. Today I wanted to take a look at one of my favorite episodes of television and see what I could learn from its storyboarding. If you haven't seen it yet, One Piece episode 1015, directed and storyboarded by Megumi Ishitani, was, I think, the best episode of One Piece ever produced, and I still have no idea how she and her team at Toei Animation had the resources to achieve what they did. Ishitani has directed 2 other episodes of One Piece, which are both standouts as well, but this episode I think goes above and beyond. So, if you haven't checked it out yet, I definitely recommend doing that because I'm going to get into spoilers. Now, full disclosure, Ishitani's storyboards for 1015 are not available anywhere as far as I know, but we can still study how she approaches key aspects of storyboarding like camera work, composition, and staging by looking at the final product. But first, a quick recap. Episode 1015, titled Strawhat Luffy, the man who will become king of the pirates, follows Yamato as he tells Momonosuke about his friendship with Ace, while Luffy and the other pirates of the worst generation finally make it to the rooftop of Onigashima to face off against Kaido and Big Mom. Alright, let's dive in and talk about some of the simple things Ishitani does in 1015 to make her board so cinematic. Entrances and exits. Ishitani likes showing characters entering and exiting frame. I love this because it reminds me that I don't always have to start or end shots with a character perfectly composed in the frame. Oh, and by the way, these drawovers were done by me to simplify the shots for easier analysis. They are not Megumi Ishitani's storyboards. Keep the characters active. The very first scene in this episode goes a long way to setting up the characters of Yamato and Ace and their attitudes toward each other. When doing dialogue scenes, it's easy to fall into a habit of having the characters talking while simply standing around or sitting still. But here, I love how Ishitani keeps the characters active. Yamato's exaggerated, cartoony gestures are both adorable and show off his childlike innocence. Ace here starts off unconscious, with his head planted in a smashed barrel. Then he gets up. Then he dries his face with Yamato's robes. Then he pulls a wood chip off his face. Then he lights it with his fire ability. And finally uses it to light a campfire using the rest of the wood, all while exchanging dialogue with Yamato. This whole set of actions shows that Ace has both a dopey drunk side to him and a resourceful side to him. I also like this shot where even though the characters of focus here are Yamato and Momonosuke, Ishitani doesn't forget about Shinobu and her reaction. Foreground elements. One thing I sometimes forget when I storyboard is to make full use of foreground, midground, and background. Showing the depth in the environment and the characters will help make boards more cinematic and less flat. Megumi Ishitani specifically uses foreground elements in a few interesting ways. 1. As a frame within a frame to guide the audience's eyes to a specific subject. 2. To obscure, then reveal a character. Or vice versa. And 3. To create invisible screen wipe transitions. This one is just killer. P.O.V. shots. Ishitani also loves to use point of view shots to bring us further into specific characters' perspectives, which is something I definitely want to try more in my boards. Match cuts. A match cut, for those who don't know, is a type of transition from one shot to another wherein the shots share a similar graphic composition. Ishitani uses match cuts to create emotional effect in 1015, which features 2 absolutely devastating match cuts. First, we have Yamato's hand waving goodbye to Ace while holding his Viver card, which cuts to Ace's Viver card burning up in Yamato's hand at his desk. And second, we see Luffy meeting with the samurai before they all set off to battle, which cuts brutally to all the samurai at that store as Luffy arrives to save the day. And this one isn't exactly a graphic match cut, but it's a match on action. Ace falls from Luffy's arms, which cuts to Yamato falling to his knees. Other creative transitions. Here are some other cool ways Megumi Ishitani transitions from one scene to another. In this shot, we transition from the present to the past with almost the same close-ups of Yamato, but with the screen direction flipping. Here, when we transition in and out of Yamato's dream sequence, which I'll talk a little more about in a minute, we travel through Yamato's eye, which actually reminds me of a trick Sam Raimi likes to do, so I don't know, maybe there's some inspiration there. Here's another eye transition when Kaido is attacked by his son. Here's a nice lightning flash transition. And I don't know what to call this transition, but it's so cool, visually and thematically. And to be totally clear, most of the things I mentioned in this video are not storyboarding or directing techniques unique to Megumi Ishitani. I point these out because they're things that stood out to me and that I want to practice more in my own work. Lastly, let's talk about this sequence because, I just have to. We could talk about the jaw-dropping change in art style and color palettes, or the stylized animation, but I think that all goes without saying. I just want to point out how clever the adaptation is here. See, in the manga, the flashback with Whitebeard, Oden, and Roger is completely separate from the flashback with Ace, Sabo, and Luffy. In fact, they're separated by almost 400 chapters. On top of that, neither flashback actually appears in the chapter that episode 1015 adapts. They're just alluded to. And although the Roger flashback is intended to be a parallel to the Luffy flashback, it only really registers that way for fans with impeccable memories. So I just love the idea to bring these two flashbacks together physically via a surreal dreamlike sequence, as if they took place at the same time and location, which they don't, to clearly show the audience how they parallel each other. It also just shows how deeply Ishitani understands her source material, which is awesome. There are so many other things I could talk about in this episode, from the amazing animation, beautiful drawings, and gorgeous compositing, to the pitch-perfect voice acting and sound design, which all came together to turn a manga chapter I wasn't particularly enthused by into an anime episode that made me want to cheer and cry. Heck, I could talk even more about storyboarding stuff I love in this episode, but I think I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you learned something as I have. Have an awesome day.